exclusive discussion. A very, very warm welcome to all of you to this exclusive roundtable discussion brought to you by the Economic Times in association with our partner HireQuotient. It is so good to meet all of you in person and take a break from the virtual world we have all been part of for almost 2 years. I'm Ruby Taj, Head of International Business from the Economic Times, and I would be your anchor for the next 1 hour. The theme for today's session is Crystal Gazing, the future of hiring for the new world of work. Please do join us. Yeah. Now, change is the only constant, and we are all aware of that. The past 2 years have been an eye-opening experience for all of us that led to redesigning and rethinking most of our decisions. The biggest war that we've been witnessing is the war for the right talent, and all of us have been witnessing that in our respective organizations. But how do we measure the correctness of the candidate's fitment? That's something that I'm sure most of the recruiters, most leaders who are in the talent acquisition function must be facing. What should be the checklist for hiring managers for a better hiring approach? How will virtual interviews play an important role in the back to office era? The Economic Times, in partnership with HireQuotient, in this roundtable discussion, will deep dive into these and many more questions that will save recruitment leaders from the nightmares of bad hiring. So what we will do is, so today's session has been made possible only because of the great support and trust of our partner HireQuotient. We have Smarthveer from HireQuotient, and we have Sophia, who's just, she's just walked out. I'd like to thank their entire team for bringing in their experience and helping us design this session together. So before I take you through today's agenda, let me briefly introduce ETHRWorld and HireQuotient. ETHRWorld is the flagship digital media platform for the HR vertical of the Economic Times, which is the second largest widely read business newspaper in the entire world. Now, present across geographies, we aim to unite the world of work community and enable their learning through insights, news, interviews, trends, research, white papers, curated content, and conferences like this one, masterclasses, and workshops as well. HireQuotient aims to revolutionize the way companies hire, looking beyond just the resume, focusing on real skill capabilities. Their virtual interviewers transform the way businesses assess candidate skills, helping them screen and identify truly capable talent. HireQuotient rolls out a variety of job simulations that help senior management propel data-driven, unbiased, and skill-based recruiting decisions. Now, before we begin this quick discussion, I would request all of you for a quick round of introduction. Though we have already said hi to each other, but it's very important that we do introduce ourselves to each other. And please, while you're introducing yourself, please also share one key expectation that you have from this discussion today, so that once we wrap up the session, at least we can go back to those key expectations and see if we've achieved anything out of it or not. So I'll start with, I'll start with you. Please, introduce yourself and one key expectation.
Thank you. First of all, good morning, everyone. I'm Prashant Pandey. I am Director of Technology for Asia Pacific and Japan in VMware. For over a decade, I have worked in Asia Pacific and Japan to transform customers' work style using technology. That being said, the world has become hybrid, and technology is trying to play a role to find the right person. So my expectation today is to understand how technology is helping you to find the empathy and culture so that your organization is more productive and is competitively differentiated than anybody else. Thank you.
Thank you, Prashant.
Thank you. My name is Joan Soong, and I'm from Schneider Electric. I'm responsible for global executive recruitment. I'm based out in Singapore. So what I hope to achieve is really to learn from each one of you. It's an interesting topic. And I think we all in this room are facing so much challenges in recruiting and So would just like to get sort of key insights and learn.
Good morning. My name is Gracie. I'm from EdmundOptics. First, thank you, Economic Times, for this invitation. I'm sure we will all benefit from it. I'm responsible for the whole human resource in Singapore. So definitely we are here today to try to see how we can make improvements in the area of hiring. I think everyone is facing this unique problem, and hopefully it can get better. Yeah, we are into manufacturing, so it's quite a challenge also in Singapore. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Christina. I am from Kopi, Kenangan. You may not have heard of this company. We are actually a Indonesian-based coffee chain. We have about 800 stores in retail store in Indonesia, and we are actually expanding into Malaysia this year. And we will be landing in other parts of Southeast Asia actually as well. We are only 4 years old, so you can see that the type of growth that I have been pushing for, we have been pushing for, is actually very, very dynamic in that sense. So what am I expecting? Of course, for a fast-growing organization, right? How could we actually improve, right, and make hiring easier? Because driving a TA team right now, right, for a fast hiring and the type of hiring we are talking about is so much, right? How could technology help us in that sense? Yeah.
Hi, good morning. My name is Glen. I'm the board member for ACRA. ACRA is a regulator in Singapore. For me, just today is just for me to listen to all the experts over here in HR. I think this is an important topic for all of us, certainly also for tech. I've been largely in the tech side of the world for a long time. So certainly, hopefully, we can network and we can share ideas. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Judy Diane Prince, and I'm head of talent management for Exyte. We're an engineering firm specializing in the high-tech and bio data centers, semicon industry. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to learn and share with you all because I think there's always something that we can learn from one another or see things differently. I think what I would like to learn today is also about employee experience, also using tech. And of course, probably every single person in this room has the issues with hiring as well in the talent area. So that's what I hope to get today. Thank you.
Hello. Yeah, good morning, everyone. I'm Nohrin. I'm the Chief People Officer for Infosys Compaz, which is a joint venture of Infosys and Temasek International. So I'm here. I'm looking after all the aspects of HR. And what am I expecting? I'm expecting to hear new and emerging practices in terms of hiring talent. So never in our time since the pandemic that our recruitment requirement is always 25 to 30% of our total workforce. So you can just imagine how tough it has been. And the competition has actually enlarged, not just on the digital space, but also other company, which is non-conventional non-digital company are also competing for the same talent pool. So it's been very challenging at that front. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Smarth. I'm co-founder, CEO, HireQuotient. Broadly, Ruby has explained what HireQuotient does, but at the highest level, what we are doing is helping companies to hire business talent faster and more efficiently. I think the most important takeaway for me from this discussion would be to hear what are the big challenges that all of you are facing, because the very idea of HireQuotient is to help people, leaders, solve the big pain points. We've started with hiring, but we want to understand how can we add more and more value to each one of you and your team. So from that perspective, I'll be very eager to listen more and see how we can build something that can really make your team's life easier.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for the kind introduction. I'm really, really excited and I'm looking forward to the discussion that is going to start now. So now without any further ado, I would like to start with our very first session. So Smarthveer Sidana, who is the co-founder and CEO of HireQuotient, has worked with many global organizations and business schools and education ministries in the UK and India to help them revamp their Business Master's course curriculum. He has also worked with Boston Consulting Group as management consultant, and in his individual capacity, more than 100 working professionals for their top tier jobs. His experiences spread vastly in EdTech, upskilling, and HR technology across London, Canada, India, and the US. He was recently recognized as 35 under 35 entrepreneurs by Entrepreneur magazine. So please welcome Smarthveer on the podium with a big round of applause.
So I'll keep my introduction short because it's already most of the important things have been conveyed, and I think for any entrepreneur the most important thing is why are we doing what we are doing, and hence the very idea of HireQuotient came out of the discussions that happened with hiring managers, HRs, where the big pain points when I used to interact with the hiring managers, and I was involved in interviews as well, was that there are a lot of facepalm interviews in round one. And Christina, to your point, for organizations that are growing very, very fast and the teams need to hire faster, how do you close the right quality talent in a very quick manner? And if you don't have the right filters, top of the funnel, then the hiring managers end up having a lot of interviews with the misfits. So how do you solve that problem? Because that not just reduces the productivity, to your point, but also it adds to frustration and not a good candidate or employee experience as well. When we interacted with the HRs, and this is in the last 2 years, the big pain points were, hey, the recruitment cycles have become longer. How do we shorten them? Because if I'm not able to shorten the recruitment cycle, I can't fill the position on time. My KPI is not being met. The second big challenge that we heard was, today in the market, be it great resignation or talent war, there is a scenario where you don't have the luxury of retaining the talent with you for a very long time. Each talent is being approached left, right, center. So how do you make sure that you are able to identify the top talent and you don't miss out on that talent? And the third big pain point that everybody said, if you're looking for quality hires, the supply is limited. You have demand. So what do? Do you upskill them? Even if you upskill, you need a sourcing pool. So the answer in our mind was very simple, to say that if we can use technology and data to build capability in the company that can help them identify top talent early on in the funnel, then essentially the hiring managers are having very few and the most relevant interactions. HRs know who are the top 10%, 20% candidates who should be prioritized and should be accelerated in the journey. And you spend time doing the most impactful things with them. You engage them, helping them understand more about the company value, about the different scenarios that if they are onboarded, what exactly would they be working on? So you do the most impactful stuff, and overall it helps you to make sure that your conversion with that top talent is very, very high. In addition, another big trend that we started seeing 2 years back, and now it's very talked about, is how do you make your recruitment more neutral and you take away the unconscious bias. Today, the blue chips and everybody's talking about unconscious bias, be it through CV parsing, be it in gender, be it in race, all across. We all have unconscious bias. And that is what adds to us defining what could be a proxy for excellence. But as you go wide, as your organizations are growing, there are lesser and lesser proxies for excellence. So how do we take all of this into account? So that is how HireQuotient was born. Today, it's been a year and we are working with 35 clients in Singapore and US, including clients like BCG, Lazada, Shopee, etc. And how we have helped them is essentially on each of these pain points. We've cut down the interviews time per hire by 30 to 50%. We've helped them reduce the gender bias by almost 20%. And there are a lot more on the candidate side where the candidate experience has really improved. I heard somebody saying that, hey, we're looking to understand how can we improve the candidate experience. To us, the answer is very simple. Make interview or make the entire recruitment process a two-way channel. The moment you make it a one-way channel where you are asking them questions, you've lost the candidate. Help them understand, let them ask questions. And that can only happen if from A to B, everywhere the candidate has an opportunity to ask you the questions. And that can be done at scale via technology. Humans are always constrained by bandwidth. We have to embrace technology to make sure that all of these problems are getting solved. So that's broadly how HireQuotient journey has evolved. But I think the big trends, and as I said, I'm here to listen. The big trends that because we get a fence view working with these clients, that I am seeing is there is a huge shift in competency-based hiring. Companies are realizing that CV or guesswork using CV keyword matching is not the right filter. You have to understand and answer, can the candidate do the job or not? So from that perspective, and there is no better criteria than actually testing them on a job simulation. For example, if you're hiring somebody for a very deep financial role, give them the data modeling exercise. Let them do what they're supposed to do on the job and give them an understanding that are they really good on the job or what is the job expectation, and you get to understand how good they are. Same for sales. For example, if I'm hiring for account executive or a business development representative, I need to understand, can they write good emails? When I do the interviews, I ask them to send me an email. I ask them to engage with me in a conversation. I ask them, can you do quota planning? Can you help me understand if you were to build a pipe and clock some revenue, how many meetings, how many proposals? This is what is missing today. And that is what I see a lot of companies doing more and more. So that's one big trend. The second big trend that I am seeing is companies really going above and beyond to improve candidate and employee interaction and experience. And this is being done via conversational AI. We can all discuss what is the downside of AI, but I think broadly how companies are thinking is we have to embrace the technology and mitigate the risk. Nobody is denying there are risks. We have to mitigate those risks as well. The third big shift that I am seeing is companies becoming much more aware of the biases and hence thinking that how can we make the recruitment much more inclusive in nature. So these are, I think, the big trends that across sectors, across geographies, companies are really, and the people leaders are really thinking that how can we make an impact, because most of the other problems have broadly been solved for. So this is, I think, the big trends. Another interesting thing that just on the competency-based hiring, which I think would be a very interesting topic, and I would love to capture the feedback, is at the start of pandemic, and I was reading this in Harvard Business Review, an article, it said the way we look at the layoffs and skills is also changing a lot. For example, just after the pandemic, everybody's aware that the restaurant servers lost their jobs. There was a huge, massive layoffs that happened. On the other side, the domestic consumption saw a surge. And with that surge, every company was trying and struggling to find customer support people. Fundamentally, now, if you look at this problem, a restaurant server is a very good fit and has the key skills that a customer support for domestic consumption requires. But the proxy that was being used, do they have a past experience in that or not? So that very narrative could not help them see the upside in that layoffs and could not help them to see the hidden talent pool that they could have latched on. So from that perspective, I think the big competitive advantage that the companies should start thinking about is all of us are aware sourcing is a problem. But what are you doing to solve it? If you are just if you're not finding atypical solutions, out of the box solutions, then you are as good as your competitors. What I see best companies do today is go really wide in their search and have the right filters. Think from the perspective that if you are hiring consultants and you're only looking at X consultants, the pool is limited. What if you go so wide and you're not considering the past experience? You go to every university, you go to different types, atypical talent pools, and do their evaluation, how good they are in problem solving, structured thinking, analytical ability, synthesis, the key skills that are needed for a good consultant. And anyone who ranks highly on that, give them a chance. So from that perspective, you are really tapping into atypical pools that your competitors are not doing, and you are finding the hidden gems. And these hidden gems is what I think can solve the sourcing problem. So that's the broad overview of what I am seeing working with the different clients that we work. Happy to take any questions, engage more, learn, and see how we can add value. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Joan. That was really, really insightful. And now I think it's the right opportunity for us to open room for discussion. We have identified 4 areas where we would want your views and your thoughts and your insights on. And this is an open discussion, so I'll definitely, you can start talking and sharing your views on, and I also invite you to share your views as well. So I will start with the very first question that we would all like and we would all want to address, and that is, if you could share the biggest dilemmas that recruitment leaders are going through in the new world of work. And maybe I'd like to start with Glen. What do you think are one or two dilemmas that recruitment leaders might be going through in the new world of work? It's not only recruitment leaders. I think as business leaders or even as team leaders, we do have the responsibility upon ourselves. We are responsible for hiring our teams and building our teams. So Glen, what are your thoughts around it?
Well, I think the reality is that I think in this new world where work from home has become kind of ingrained. I mean, that many leaders are struggling now to bring people back. Right? I mean, if they want to bring people back, they can, but the younger generation might not want that. Now, I think that's a correlation also with the hiring process, because if companies decide to allow their workers to work from home or work from anywhere, then the question then is there a necessity to just hire locals? Or is there a mechanism to hire even foreigners easily at a cheaper labor cost, right? If I look at it from a tech perspective, because I've been running technology for a long time. One of the things that we were talking about, and this is with the leaders of technology in the technology world, is that where would a lot of this new tech talents start basing themselves in? Now, assuming that the cost base of most countries are going up, right? So most of us who are hiring tech, and you probably would know that, we tend to hire tech from a lower cost base if we can, right? We will get people from, let's say, Singapore as maybe we call them the people who deal with the front end business users, but the tech talents, the engineers might come in, let's say, from India, Sri Lanka, Vietnam, and so on. Now, but there is a big churn because there's a lot of needs from tech, and tech is not the only function that people need, right? There are many other functions. If their cost is going up because they're jumping jobs and people need them, over time, actually it becomes very normalized, right? It becomes very normalized such that if I'm looking at the difference between, let's say, hiring someone from Singapore versus India or somewhere else, it becomes the differential is not so much. Then even with the process of work from home, it might not make a difference hiring in either country. But there's also another caveat here because we can also see the trend of people, the tech talents, moving to, let's say, Middle East. Because the Middle East now is offering them zero tax, right? Plus tax-free. So if my cost base is increasing in the lower cost countries, and I'm getting less jobs now from there, why not move to a place that is tax-free? Now, so that changes a lot of the process of where people are going to be hired and where to look for talents. So today I'm looking for talents all over, a few countries here in around Asia, some, of course, still in Singapore. But over time, maybe I have to start looking for talents in the Middle East because they'll start moving there. So these are things. These are I would say, movements. But it's hard to see the whole picture. But there's definitely a trend coming in from the work from home, remote working, the concept of that, plus also the trends of companies feeling more comfortable now hiring from overseas, since anyway people are working from outside. They're not in the office, right? Yeah, so I mean, this is something that's in the play, and certainly from a tech perspective, and tech is a very integral part for many companies these days. I mean, you cannot do without tech, right? And everyone needs to be tech savvy, right? All business leaders need to be tech savvy. This is one area that certainly I'm looking at very, very carefully, right? In terms of the hiring process and where do we move, where do we hire, where do we form certain hubs where we can get certain talents in certain spaces where we talk about data, or whether it's on marketing tech or something else. Anyway, that's my perspective.
Very interesting there, because the pandemic did open doors for us, and working from home and of course remote working has made a complete global talent has become available to any organization. And like you said, whether it's you might have started looking at the Middle East for more talent going forward, or to any other region, at least those doors have opened. That's great. Thank you so much, Glen. Why don't we move to you, Prashant, and what would your thoughts be? What are the dilemmas that you would, as facing in today's world?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Glen, for the thought that we did to tech savvy. Tech has been helping people to take decisions. And personally, I'm going toward a course where we started with org structures. So 100 years back, when industries were meant, org structures were defined just to ensure that everybody was from a building. There was a wall, everybody comes there, the hierarchy. What happened in digital era, since after perhaps 2000 was a start, I can say, but now it's accelerated a bit. We are seeing that org structure is transformed in 3 buckets. The first bucket is frontline staff. Any company where people are touching customer, they are the bucket. They have to be there. They can't work away from that. Hospital staff, stewards like Singapore Airlines or this hotel. That's one bucket of people. The second bucket we are seeing is the people who can be remote. As Glen was mentioning, we can hire resource in different countries. And the third one are the hybrid people, like perhaps most of us. Sometimes we are in front of customers, sometimes we're in office, sometimes we are actually with those remote guys in their home or coffee with them or somewhere like that. I live that life across Asia. So now I'm seeing this org structure is evolving, and I'm hearing from organizations that this is going to be in their benefit, and they see this org structure as a competitive differentiator. The companies who defined the org structure 100 years back and are not adopting to new org structure, they are at the risk of losing the wave. That being said, the challenge is people. So I see that if I look at people, you have to look at where they are. When they start their career, they work for price. They don't care for title. It's like how much money I get, and perhaps title is good. Then they evolve in their career, they work for profit. Can I make things profitable? And the third level is one where people work for purpose. Perhaps all of you are there in organization for driving a purpose or culture of the organization. So what happens that when we look at the profile and we start writing the JD, I feel that sometimes the JDs are too marketed also. In fact, I was interviewing a candidate and he said that then whatever you have written in the JD, how authentic is that? And that goes back to Smart's candidate experience point. So my point is, of the candidate journey, we are going through the same thing. Like, we are trying to be honest with the candidates when we are hiring the candidate. We write the right JD, titles can be defined. The second thing is, once you hire them, you have to understand where they are in their journey. If it's an entry level, it's a mid level, it's high level. And the third thing is, we try to empower them to move based on where they want to be. For example, I work for Asia Pacific in Japan, and if any of you work in Japan, the culture is that I can be very logical and transparent and keep doing same thing and again, but because I like that thing. On the contrary, I grew up in India. I worked in Israel, I worked in Canada. And the notion in India is that you have to do something new every day because you are cool. And that's the majority of the thought process. So depending on where you're hiring people from, you can understand what their purpose is and then kind of create a path and put them in the, I call it, new org structure. That's what I'm seeing organizations doing. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Prashant, for sharing that. Anybody, I'm opening this for comments from many of our other speakers. Would you want to share your dilemmas as a recruiter that you've been facing? Something that both Prashant and Glen might not have covered. Please feel Nohrin, Joan, Helen, Grace.
So I'm from Schneider Electric. So Schneider Electric is an energy management and automation company, right? So anything and everything that you see that manages electricity, that's the business that we are in. We live in a global world, and in that global world, we don't have a HQ. So our hubs are in Paris, Boston, Hong Kong, and today Singapore, India, Bangalore, Zurich. So leaders sit all over the world, and that's the space that we operated. Thankfully, actually, because that kind of sustained us through COVID with the diversification, our talent pools, our businesses, and so forth. But we're still facing the same dilemmas with hiring, right? And in my capacity, I look after Exyte level recruitment, which is our top 1% of the employee part from CEO, N-1 and 2. And the issues that we face, I came from Dell, and Dell, when I joined them, was a $12.5 billion company. When I left them, it was a $60 billion company. And that growth and change and the pace, and you were talking about speed, right, of hiring and that growth, I lived that. And I felt like through COVID and coming back out, or I think we're still in it, but in 2021, as we come out of lockdown and all that, that deja vu of year 2000. I don't know I think most of us lived through it. It felt the same, how we are frenzied hiring. I remember in Dell, we were trying to hire online people. I mean, Michael Dell was the first to do the direct from Dell and, buying your computers from the you can order online, right? And I was responsible for finding online leaders. Where do I search from? And today we are moving into the world of electrification, e-mobility, digitizing software, and running all these applications and all that. And I'm kind of asking myself again. That's why I said I'm feeling this deja vu, right? Oh, where do I find them from, right? And I like your point that when you say hire where your competitors are not hiring from. That's a good point. I'm going to take that back. So happy to learn something new today. Yes, we do look at pools like that, right? To help us peel the onions and uncover that dilemma, or shake and challenge the business leaders a bit in their thinking, right? Why are we hiring from our competition again and again? How different will that help us, right? If we are saying that we are chartering the path and digitizing and revolutionizing the space. And by the way, just a bit of advertisement, Schneider Electric was the most sustainable company in the world last year, right? We are number 4 this year, but we are in the top 5 realm. So how do you want to pace yourself and drive, and why are we looking at the same type of profile because they get very protective, right? Oh, does this person know the space? Does he know our industry? Does he know process automation? But we're looking for leadership who can help you imagine the future. So what is this future that you want to be gazing at, right? So yeah, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share.
Anybody else would like to share their thoughts before we move on to the next discussion point? Yes, Helen.
And there's a lot. The skills are different now. The skills required are different, and that's been accelerated through the pandemic. So you have, as you mentioned before, at Dell, you were looking for people who had online skills, which was relatively new, and now you're looking for leaders who can manage effectively remotely. You need certain skill sets of new and emerging technologies, which you don't have someone who's got 10 years of leadership experience with that technology behind them. So clients are having to, so we're a consultancy, so we work across all sectors at senior level, and clients are having to look at different ways of bringing in those skills to the company in order to achieve the tasks that they need to do in order to push the business forward. And it's critical, you know, in order to get ahead of the competition, they need these skills in. So what we're seeing now, and you know, more and more, is that work task planning rather than just purely workforce planning. What are we going to need next year? What we're going to need for the next 5 years? Looking at those tasks that need to be achieved, and how do they bring the skills into the organization in order to achieve those tasks? And I know Schneider, for example, use a platform that enables other people to get involved in all projects. You know, you're actively encouraged to get involved in projects that might match your skills, and the platform matches brings up projects which may be relevant to you because of your skill set. You're actively encouraged to get involved in these projects, which obviously enriches the lives of your working life as well, which helps make your employees more sticky to the company. And you can then achieve those tasks. So there's the automation, there's the robotics, there's the AI, there's the building a bank of freelancers, for example, and there's using your internal staff, as well as just wanting to hire a single person. But it means that companies are able to be more agile and achieve projects more quickly. It's just something we're seeing.
And just one thought of that I have, I think now that we're discussing what is the big dilemma. When I talk to the clients and I talk to the people leaders, the big dilemma that I hear is, at the pace the skills are changing, do we hire for today or do we hire for the future? And I think so, and that also circles back with the retention. So from the perspective that when you're onboarding somebody at any level, be it entry to senior level, you're always thinking, what would that person do 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the line? And how would the entire vertical shape up? And the pace at which new skills are coming up. I think companies are struggling fundamentally to understand what the new competencies would look like. Nobody has an idea. It's all evolving. From that perspective, what do I test? Do I test for attitude, which is much, or do I test for learning ability or adaptiveness, or do I test for what they're supposed to do today? So I think that's one dilemma that I keep hearing, and nobody has the right answer. Everybody's trying to figure out what works best for their organization. And to your point, leaders, from the perspective that, do they have to imagine the future, or do they have to do the task that you're already doing today? Because if they do the task exactly the same way, they're not leaders. That's the fundamental conflict, I think.
And I think that is, a point that all of us must be going through on a regular basis. I have faced the same issues, when I'm hiring somebody, this question comes from my mind: I'm hiring for today, I'm hiring for tomorrow, because maybe the skills that I'm looking for today might not really be something that I'm looking for, for a long term, kind of solution. So of course, that's very relevant, and we'd love to hear if anybody else has any dilemma that they'd like to share. Great, otherwise we move on.
I can add to that from an industry perspective, because I work across industry, I do mentoring in startups, and few of my friends have been doing more. So in the industry, I saw three types of industry. First type of industry are the ones who are there for 15 years and they're established and they're great. The second type of industry are the ones who are very important for any country, and those are the government organizations, and they have the job offer. The third one are the ones which are growing at a pace which none of this growth, which is fine. Right? their growth pattern is different. They sense and solve their scale, using products that are different. Perhaps Michael is an example, I'm VMware, and that's been Broadcom kind of journey. However, if you look at people at each point of time, there are two types of personality. Personally, I look at it, there are actually one personality is hunter person. They go, they hunt, like you're running a business yourself, you have done it, and perhaps you might be like that, go here. And the second one is farmers. So these guys will go, you open a new shop, and then this guy will set up everything. Then the team will come and they will farm, and they keep farming. So this is the human, as you said, it's a native attitude. Not everyone likes to be bored. So when I experiment my example, most of my Australian females, they are like, I can call them on. They're really good, they can change your mindset. But when I look at other shows, I feel that energy is not there, but they're very, very farming. So I give them that, okay, they have content, go and drive the adoption of the business. Go and run the execution like the best operation model. And they can take that great company from here to here to here. So that was to the point like why they hire people and what persona they have. And I'm fortunate to have team members like me who are there for 10 years. And just because you asked them, they're not fun. And they were not.
We definitely need a very good balance between the farmers and the hunters because they're very critical roles to play. Thanks for pointing that out, Prashant. Haven't heard from Gracie and I have not heard from Christina, so please do share your thoughts as well on that one dilemma. Judy and Nohrin, we have we'd love to hear your dilemma and I'm sure you're facing one. Yes, we could start with
Yeah, maybe I could just add something. I just heard from Glen about a challenge from working from home, but this is really the future. Just like in our head office US, 50% of the people do not go into the office except once a week. And this is something we need to embrace in order to get a bigger pool of people back to the workforce. It's a supply and demand. Yeah, so also I think for HR practitioners, we need to look at job redesigning. That's to make the jobs more attractive, whether you work remotely or at the work site. Also, the other thing is definitely it would be helpful with technology and maybe new platforms that ET could consider. We always have the recruitment platforms like Indeed or whatever. But I think with this going forward, if you want to hire overseas, having a very good technology on a digital platform would attract employees from all over the world. Because with this employment going forward, definitely there'll be, we don't just hire in Singapore or Asia, like Middle East or whatever. And this will be, I see it as a shift. Yeah, so I'm actually looking for new platforms. I mean, I heard in the radios, they have technology for sizing people up and all that. So I think this would be the new direction that some of us may want to explore. Yeah. Yeah.
This is time for us to experiment with new platforms because there's so much innovation that's happening all around us. And it would be great if someone could also, guide us in that perspective because we've been in this field for such a long time. We work with so many organizations who are facing similar challenges. So we'd love to, definitely, we can catch them. Basically, after the discussion is over. And yes, Christina, what are your thoughts? What is that one dilemma that really keeps you awake when it comes to hiring and recruitment?
Okay. Maybe because I'm in a startup organization, right? I don't, when I go in, it's just to push the growth. So maybe I don't face, maybe because of my, the way I drive talent acquisition, right? I focus, we have to think, what are our talent of tomorrow actually thinking about actually? So I embrace a lot and push a lot in terms of employer branding. So the first thing I did when I joined Kopi Kenangan, right, I actually changed the way, modernized the way that they, because it's an Indonesian company, the way they recruit, right, is very, very different. They don't think of how do we use all the social media in that sense to help us to push and attract talent actually. And are we using social media too much in a sense? So it become white noise in a sense actually as well. So those are the questions that I asked them, right? So what I have done with them is I actually push for us to use like advertising organization in that sense actually as well. So picture speaks 1,000 words in that sense. So what I did is I push for showcasing our lives in Kopi Kenangan in social media, and I only use Instagram, right, in that sense, right, to actually capture our life of our employee. LinkedIn is another social media platform in that sense, but I feel that social people in LinkedIn are key executive. So I don't push for too much of this type of information, because to me, it is just critical information that is necessary. So because of that, right, even though throughout COVID time, for the 2 years, we actually grow the team from 2,000 to 5,000. We have no issue because of that. And that is through effective use of how are we using what is available in the market. Like what you mentioned, indeed, all these other platforms is good, but is it really, to me, it's a two-edged sword. Because you can't stop people from commenting. Glassdoor actually as well. I, in fact, am lead and strategy that I don't believe in that. My senior leader tell me to put it in there. I said, yeah, they can float our things in there, but I do not believe in putting anything there because you can't control what people will say on that platform. I only strictly use LinkedIn. I only use Instagram. And then I focus a lot on how do we present our information on the website to attract employee in a sense. Yeah. And usually, right now, people are attracted through video. So we actually have a creative team. So every year we update a video about our company. Yes. So communicate your employees' experience through video. So from there, people can have a new experience in that sense. And the first thing I did 2 years ago when I joined them, I also plant the seed in the senior management team. Talents are everywhere in that sense. So we have to identify what talent can we look at in that sense, whereby they could be hired in different countries. The only key focus we need to look at is what are the working hours they are working in. You can't be hiring somebody in US whereby we are in Indonesia. It's like 24 hours. We can't even communicate or have a meeting, right, in that sense actually as well, right? So therefore, when we look at talent, for example, when you mentioned, okay, when Joan mentioned, why when we are gazing at the future, do we actually look at talent in the same industry or out of the industry? What we did in Kopi Kenangan is we actually look out of the industry. Why? We look at the skill talent that we need in that sense. So for example, when we look at strategy team, where do I hire from? I hire them from consulting firm, although they have zero industry experience. Then how do I test whether they are right for a job? We have case study. We test their skill of imagination. We give them real case. This is our scenario. Are you able to do it? So then from there we decide, are this the person intelligent enough? Even without information, they can do the job. Yes. And we also involve the team a lot in the interview. So the interview is not only, we have like two rounds of interview. First round, case study, we get people who are laymen, in fact, doing the same role to do the interview. And then we involve the leaders to do the interview. So from there, instead of going up, we go from people who are in the same level, not the hiring manager do first. So, and then they test the skill, they know they actually had the buy-in of the employee actually as well. Then we move forward to another level, who is the reporting manager to interview. So I switch up the way of interviewing process in a sense actually as well. And actually that helps a lot. And we do it very, very fast actually as well. We try to complete all our interviewing process, right, within 10 days in a sense. The decision from once we shortlist, right, to interviewing and the decision making, right, in a sense is within 3 days we can roll out a offering. So that is how we managed to do that for Kopi Kenangan actually as well. Yeah.
So important is you will lose talent these days. The moment you start talking to someone about a role and they're always very happy when they're on the job, they get their CV updated and they start being
precisely. That's what I told them actually. So for a certain role, right, especially for senior executive leader, like when I was hiring the COO, CMO and all that, right? So, but that will take longer because we want to make sure the whole C team is actually had the buy-in. We even include directors in a sense for some level of interview. And I believe in doing group interviews actually as well. So because it's a waste of time, right? They'll be answering the same question. Everybody, so why do you do individual interview, right? But we limit the number of interviewers in a sense, maybe 3, max 4 interviewers in a sense. So then we organize 2 sessions. And because COVID time, right, you cannot have face-to-face, so everything is online. So we can see different aspects of the people that we are hiring actually as well.
That's all very quite similar. The candidate experience is just so critical.
Precisely.
So you don't get it right, and they will go somewhere else.
Correct.
And shortening time in order to secure.
Yes. Yes. And I think the people that we have in the recruiting team is also very, very important. So we ensure every time that we communicate with them after the interview, we have feedback. After the interview, we have another feedback. So they feel the constant connection with the organization actually as well. And transparency nowadays, regardless of age, as transparent as possible, good, bad, and ugly, you lay the cards on the table in that sense, right? We don't just tell them what is good. In fact, I tell them the ugliest thing. I say, I'd rather tell you what's the ugliest. You come in with your eye open. So you know, come on, especially I'm in a startup organization, right? How busy, you're starting everything from scratch. You are not coming into an organization like Schneider, Microsoft, Google, everything is actually done. You have to build from scratch. Are you willing to do so? Yeah.
Very good. Thank you. Judy, you'd like to add to what Christina was just sharing?
I mean, I pretty much indicate what we're doing, that our biggest dilemma is about 30% vacancy as well with our hiring requirements. Recently, and it's the local talent that we're really struggling for because we're engineering firms, so we can't necessarily have someone in a different time zone. They need to be on the project site. So what we've tried differently is hiring in Thailand. We're that desperate for engineers. So we sent 10 of our people to do a whole recruitment campaign, and the verdict's not out on that yet, but I think that's sort of where we are at the end of the day, and also just focusing on who we have to get it right through the recruitment process, and to be transparent, and to close as quickly as we can, and to streamline as fast as we can. Otherwise, we will lose candidates.
Very true. Very true.
So,
Nohrin, what do you come to?
so many challenges. Because we are a joint venture. We are not startup, but we are like startup in a sense, because we are starting everything from scratch. Although we have a parent company that we can rely on in terms of infrastructure, tools, and processes, but we want to be unique, in that sense, because we started as a local company. So, but barring the experience of our company, I think one of the challenges that we have, and I think we all probably are also facing, is this is a talent market right now that we are facing. It's like we're in a bear run in financial terms, but we are now in the talent market where the talents actually define how they want to be hired, at what terms they want to be hired. And that actually poses a big challenge for us, because we are a service company wherein a lot of our services has been locked in with a partner at the onset. So that means we are working with a certain bill rate, and we're serving a certain margin that probably will not be able to be met, with a new sudden surge of the compensation requirement of the digital talent. So at one point, we hired people at a certain level in terms of roles and compensation. On the other side, we have employees who have actually been saying that, okay, we're hiring these people, how about us? We're lagging in terms of compensation and everything. Then how do you balance that too? Definitely, that is a big concern that happened to us and it's still happening right now. And what we have done is we look at the roles. We have 100 roles available in the market right now. Out of those roles, which one can actually be 50 to 60% fit by the internal people? So you hire them for an IJP process, and then you backfill the role of these people who are predominantly on a much junior level. So that makes the hiring easier because you're okay to get fresh talent, which will help in the localization strategy of the company. And at the same time, you are pushing those seniors in the organization to do higher profile roles. So they feel a sense of commitment now that, okay, something is happening to me. So I think striking that balance has been very challenging because you have around 800 people to begin with. And we are working both in an onshore model and an offshore model. I don't know if you're familiar with that model. We have this approach, and both employer and time is actually having problems in terms of retention, right? And right now, even the customer have actually tried to engage on the whole process, wanted to have a say on who should we retain and who should we hire. So that actually affected the hiring velocity because every single candidate has to undergo an interview with a customer, and they have to give a buy-in. But then they wanted to expedite everything. So striking that balance, working with partners, working with customers, working with internal folks is actually causing a lot of issues around ensuring that we will get the right talent at the right time. So when we talk about do we hire for today, do we hire for the future, we say we need to hire for today so that we will stay in the future, right? So because otherwise, the way that even freshers are being hired right now, they will have 2 to 3 offers in their hand. Yeah, and those are freshers. We never thought it would happen, right? But it's very real. So what do we do now? We need to be very fast, as like you said, right? We need to be very quick. But at the same time, we need to consciously be mindful of the fact that the faster you hire people, there's a tendency that they say, I can also exit very quickly. Yes. And it's okay. It's the way that the world operates right now. So we accept some of that risk right now because there's no other way, right? And then at the same time, as Joan said, the mindset of the leaders is very important right now. Leaders would want 100% fit. It never happens. Right? It will always be 50% fit, and the rest is up to you to do engagement with your team. Yes. And the big bonus right now is on the manager how to make sure that induction is happening not only on day one, but it's a constant functional induction, constant engagement. And the role of the hiring manager becomes very important, and ensuring the stickiness of the employee of the new hire, right? So all of these things are all evolving right now, and it becomes very complicated for us to manage the data mix and even the changing priorities of people. Like we have cases 3 months, and they say, I don't want this job anymore. But this is the job that you signed up for, right? And I want a higher salary. But you signed up for the salary, right? In 3 months, why are you saying that you don't want to do this? Because I saw something about it. I want to, other technology, because technology is fast evolving. Every time they see other patches doing something, it's like, oh, this looks more lucrative, more interesting. I don't know. Then I started to make sure this partner, okay, if you encounter that, what are you gonna do? I said, okay, get that person, do what is best for your career. Find another option outside, because we also cannot manage that, because we need to balance with internal folks, right? So I think those are some of the challenges, and at the same time, to your point about sticking about are we hiring from the competition? We always do that, right? But right now we need to hire from everywhere because our competition for talent is also fast moving consumer good, also non-traditional businesses. So that means our customers also could be any one of them. So a representation of those Smarthveer through our people is also good way to actually ensure diversity and inclusion, right? So it's just open market right now. Just get wherever they are. Absolutely.
Absolutely. I think I've been, I've heard so many challenges and dilemmas that each one of us are facing as leaders, and what was really coming, across, I think I heard from all of you was, are you hiring for today or are you hiring for one of the biggest dilemmas that we have. And but what I really liked for the discussion was that while we were discussing what is bothering us, we are also we ended up sharing what we are already doing well. Like we've started hiring from across industries. We are hiring out of the box, like Joanne said. We are becoming as transparent and as fast as possible so that the candidate experience is not compromised. And like Nohrin was sharing, too many options, too many opportunities for people right now. So how can you differentiate yourself, and how can you build that perfect candidate? Of course, it can never be perfect, but a seamless candidate experience for your employees. So because we're running short of time, I'm skipping a couple of discussion pointers. I'm moving on to, because we ended, I mean, Nohrin did end with talking about candidate experience. So our next point would be, what are the useful navigators that you have used in maintaining the overall candidate experience? And maybe Samath, you would like to start off, sharing your views here, and then we would move on to anybody who wants to add. Yeah.
So what I share again, that comes from two different lenses. One is because the HireQuotient has also evolved, and in the last 9 months, we've grown to a 30-member team. We're still very young, small team, but the kind of people that we have and all of those things, I think we're doing something right because our absolute retention is zero, attrition is zero. So from that perspective, and almost every candidate that we engage and we extend the offer to, they accept the offer. So overall, then on the candidate experience side, we're doing something right. The second lens that I would share is what I see a lot of blue chips doing. For example, we work with clients like Boston Consulting Group, we work with Lazada, Shopee, etc. as well, and also younger startups. So we work with a lot of Series A, Series B companies. The DNA is very different. So what exactly are they doing? I think one common trend is you communicate more and you make the process more transparent. That's common across the board. How companies are doing, let them ask questions. People are using conversational AI, maybe few younger startups are not using technology, again, not scalable method, but they make sure that they let the candidates drive the entire process. Let them ask the questions. Second is video, what you've talked about. And this is also where technology is playing a role. So for example, if a lot of big companies where they receive 100,000, a million applicants every year, they have 5-minute pre-screening interview bots. And these bots are essentially trying to help them go through the FAQ section and giving a video from the chairman, from the CEO, from C-suite to help them understand what the brand stands for. And this 5-minute interaction just after they've submitted the CV or they submitted the form and the details would really help them know more. So it's no longer brand A versus B, compensation A versus B. So there's something more that you're doing. You're going above and beyond. So that's one, I think, very actionable thing that a lot of companies can do, and it's very easy to implement as well. The other aspect around candidate experience that I'm seeing yields very positive result is you let them understand what they're supposed to do on the job. What you were saying, that essentially if today JDs are not the marketing material, you try today, a lot of companies are putting up very fancy titles just so that the candidates are attracted. But this is something that the candidates also understand. So what do you do? Because they know that, look, today you'll attract me, but the job that I'm supposed to do, if that's very different from what you've written on JD, then I'll have to leave the organization. And while from the org, we know that how big problem is attrition on the candidate side as well, it reflects very badly very frequent switches. Therefore, if you put it very transparently that, look, this is the job you're supposed to do or you're expected to do, this is how you're expected to do it, then they get broader idea, they have more clarity, and that helps them engage more with the brand. And this ties back to the employee branding as well. So I think these are two biggest things that I'm seeing across the board that are helping out almost all the brands with different DNAs, different stages of the journey.
Please feel free to add. Judy?
So when it comes to employee experience, in our Pulse survey last year, it was came out very strongly that employees were unhappy or felt that there could have been a greater onboarding experience. So for me, that's something that we're working on very closely within the organization. So I think the stats are up to 90% of employees decide whether they stay or not within the first 6 months of their journey with an organization. And 45 days, 20% decide if they'll stay. So we're trying to take that very seriously from a retention and also an attrition, because our sweet spot with our attrition is also during the first 6 months. And if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. So we're completely revamping our onboarding. And although as it basic as it sounds rather, is everyone's getting a buddy now. Everybody, there's specific task lists that the hiring manager must do, and it shouldn't only be from their first week. It's at their first month. It's at their third month. It's at their 6th month, and that whole journey. But the challenge is that line managers don't have the time. And so a lot of it they leave back on HR, and HR can enable the process and help. But at the end of the day, that responsibility will lie with the line manager. So it's that whole re-education piece of what you actually really need to do. So we're trying with speed with that around that from actually hiring, but also the biggest thing we also have is the retention as well and the attrition. So currently focusing very strongly on the onboarding piece because that is one of the key moments of the employee experience.
Absolutely. Very, very critical as part of the entire candidate experience. Anyone else would like to share? Helen, Joan? I think there's something to be said there about the quality of recruiters in the market as well. So we have, there's a situation beginning in the pandemic where a lot of big companies shared a lot of recruiters because it's like, it's a bit of a
panic stations, right? We're not going to be hiring anyone, so quick, get rid of the team. And a lot of companies did do that. And then clearly towards the end of 2020, coming into 2021, it was a different kind of panic stations. It was like, we need to hire loads of people. So, but that headcount had disappeared for the next year. So they were using consultancies like us to fill the gap. But now we have it in our own firm because we hire recruiters for recruiting for companies, kind of. That we have them in our company as well as Talent Insights company people, and our onboarding really needs to be very strong into our company in order to make sure that people stay. And there's different skill sets available in the market, and it's so competitive that you'll bring someone in, and that employee experience part starts right from that first conversation with that person in the market. You can't mess it up these days. If you're looking for senior people, senior diverse talent with really niche skills, that first conversation's got to be a hit. And if it's not, someone else will get them for another company, And I think there is, because recruiter salaries have become so inflated, recruiters are not sticky. They tend to move around. They'll see another higher salary somewhere else. When we're looking in the US, we're finding that actually it's just very transactional recruiters. It's much more like sourcers, and actually the conversation is different than it was 5 years ago. If we're looking for people who have more than 5 years experience, some have 2 or 3, because these people are getting headhunted even more. And it is headhunting. It's not CV sifting. It's not sifting through applications. If you really want that skilled talent, you've got to headhunt them. So there's the upskilling of people coming into clients, talent acquisition teams, especially, or exec recruitment teams, and then there's making sure that they stay. And there's a lot of work goes into that. And the upskilling is about what is that first conversation has got to be a sell. It's not kind of, hey, do you fancy another job? Not that people do that, but it has to be really understanding and really selling the company, and really much more than ever before, making sure that it's really on brand, that first conversation. And I think that hunter mentality, as you were mentioning before, isn't necessarily in all of the talent pool that's available when you're looking at recruiters. So, and it comes all the way through into onboarding, that whole employee experience up until hire. You know, they're making sure that you staying with them, contacting them every day, making sure everything's okay, you know, asking about the wife and kids and stuff like that. It's important. How was your holiday? Because you're building that bond. And if you don't, you're not going to hear the voice of doubt or pick up on something that you know maybe would have come in from left field overnight. And it can happen that quickly, and then you lost them to another company. So I just, and the other part is the stakeholder management. The stakeholder management, as mentioned before, saying, right, okay, look, so we do a lot of market research work or talent research, and we'll look at our full marketplace and give the exec recruitment team or the talent acquisition team the ammo to go to the stakeholders and said, well, look, we have scanned the whole marketplace. This is the talent that's available. These people aren't interested because of X. These people don't have this particular skill. So this is the talent pool, and giving them the ammunition to actually push the conversation that they need to be more flexible in the way that they're thinking about their hires. Otherwise, the role will stay empty. So which is it? You know, do you want to fill it or not? So getting recruiters who have that ability to push the stakeholder conversation as well, I think is challenging it right now.
I think the role of the persona of the recruiter, they're hunters. They're not farmers. I think in the past, the ancient view of posting and praying, that's you post and you pray and then you know that's gone, right? And if you're recruiting that way, you're already behind the competition. So we talked about JD. I never recruit with a JD. I never start conversations with a JD. And I would tell Mr. Hiring Manager, wait, okay, you can take your time, give me a JD. It's just something there, just as a framework, right? What is more important is the success profile. What are you looking for? What does good look like? What does, this with a year from now, what does success look like to you if we bring in this person? What are the top 3 skills that is a must-have? What's a good to have, right? So that's the kind of conversation. And then we build that success profile together, right? Then we can, then we challenge. It's like, hey, you said that, Mr. Hiring Manager, this was must-have, right? Or is this was good to have? But that's a little bit of that recruiter thing. And then we especially at the executive level, we have career conversations. We call or we engage. We want to talk about you, right, Prashant, right? And what do you bring to the table? What's the evidence of the experience that you've had? I mean, so many times candidates tell me, hey, this is different, right? I'm not interviewing for a job. I was like, yeah, because we are talking to you about a career with us. Coming into this job, we do this job, right? I can share with you about the job, the good, bad, and ugly. But beyond this, we want you to grow with us. So I need to talk to you about what your thoughts and plans are for the future, and whether or not that syncs, right? And then we discuss about fit and what works for you, what happens when you are successful, what made you successful. So all these things, I think, alters the recruiter's persona of what a recruiter is and who a recruiter is. And then also the whole entire employee engagement. But then we are talking only about the new candidates coming in. We have our current people to think about in terms of employee experience, right? So how do we do that? And then Helen talked about we have this thing we call it OTM fondly, right? It's a platform, it's an AI platform where the talent pool is internal as well, right? So in that AI platform, we put in jobs, projects, you don't need your boss's permission to apply for anything. We've just shifted the whole model because we are responsible for our own career and our own learning in Schneider. So if we apply for a project, then you work harder because you want the exposure, right? And so you do need, I think there's a little bit of ground rules, right? You do need to share with your boss that you're going to be working on this, but you don't need your boss to say, oh, you can apply for this project, right? You don't need their approval. And so I've a mentee who's in Mexico because she found me in Mexico. She found me and she wanted to, and I've got someone who's sitting out in France who is mentoring me, right? So it's a sort of a global platform, projects, roles, as well as opportunities, future opportunities or even mentorship.
Discuss how recruitment and acquisition has also evolved. I think the best correlation would be to look at it like a sales from the perspective that as we discussed London and Parliament as well. So from that lens, if you see a good salesperson is only the one who's always looking to ask the pain point and add value. Anyone who's trying to make a hard sale and push the product will never succeed in the long term. In the same fashion, a recruiter or any people leader is trying to sell the company, then there's limited they can do and there will be a saturation. But if they are always trying to understand how do you see yourself succeeding, what more can I help you to understand about the company, what more can I do to set up a more transparent process. If that is the lens, and if we think recruitment as, there's also a big shift. Recruitment, as I said, earlier it was post and then trade. Today it's outbound. You reach out to people and then you try and find people who are really good fit with your organization. So that shift in approach, which is more outbound, and the narrative being from one-sided communication that let the employee come and interview with you to now asking them, what do you want? What do you expect? How can I add value if you join my organization? I think that's the 360 view that needs to evolve in the recruiter's head as well. You start thinking that how can I be the sales and a customer success person, where overall I'm owning the success factor for the hiring manager through each and every role that is getting closed.
I think that was very beautifully summarized by Smarthveer, and it's been a very interesting discussion. I know we can go on and on with our dilemmas, and we can learn a lot from each other as well. Just that because of paucity of time, we will have to officially, end the conversation. But yes, of course, the conference is on. We can continue to have the discussions with each other, and I really appreciate the time that you've taken out today for this conversation with, and of course, a very big thank you to our partner, HireQuotient, for making this possible for us. So thank you everyone once again for being here. Please join us at the HireQuotient boardroom for the CEO panel discussion on the topic leading through times of continuous disruption, the return to office conundrum. So I think the session has already started, but we will continue going there. We have a break around 11:50. You can catch up for your discussions again after that. But thank you so much. We really enjoyed the discussion, very insightful, and the dilemmas will keep on going, but we'll find solutions together. Thank you everyone. A big round of applause for each other.